today. Looking after your refreshments and your tickets is Lisa. Tickets today £7.50 for adults, £6.50 for seniors and students with the concessions, and £2.50 for children from 5 to 15. Under 5 score free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Please listen carefully to the following emergency instructions for passengers. In the unlikely event of a serious emergency taking place, you will be advised by the master of the vessel or a member of the crew of the appropriate action to be taken. Please remain calm. Should it become necessary to abandon ship, you'll be instructed to leave the compartment in which you are located using the nearest accessible and clearly marked exit. Then progresses another 18 miles along the Dee estuary, finally discharging into the Irish Sea. Although not particularly long, at approximately 80 miles, the River Dee today proudly represents an internationally famous example of advanced water management. In simple terms, water is stored in reservoirs during periods of heavy rainfall, and then released back into the river by controlled sluice gates, thus supplementing the natural low flows and permitting constant extraction, while still maintaining a reasonably constant volume of water in the river. By these means, almost 200 million gallons can be extracted daily by 5 years per while still allowing approximately 80 million gallons to flow.
Hi guys, sorry I played with the kids, I love it. 2 adults.
This process was initially set up in the early 19th century to allow a constant supply
You're determined not to let anybody listen to the commentary, are you?
Thomas Telford, the Scottish engineer, famous for his canal,
There we
road
go guys,
and bridge
have a lovely
building
day, won't you? Thank you.
was the forerunner in this
Everybody give
endeavour.
Dave a wave.
And although today
Give
this
him a wave,
system
look, he
is
looks all
modernized,
lonely on his little ferry.
nonetheless the same principles are still applied.
Enjoy your day guys, thank you.
During your cruise today, you may see mallard ducks, waterfowl such as moorhens and coots, herons, cormorants and swans. In the UK, all swans belong to the reigning monarch. The most common type to be found on the river is the mute swan, the largest native British bird, with a wingspan of more than 6 feet. In 1974, there were approximately 100 swans at Chester. Today, it is a modern restaurant. Note the large apartment block. Built in 1979, it is known as Riverside Court. From 1868 until the 1970s, this was the site of another public house and lodgings known as the White House Hotel. The hotel provided rowing boats for hire, and it too ran a ferry service until the onset of the Second World War. Beyond Riverside Court, and continuing for quite some distance on the right-hand side, look out for some riverside wooden cottages, which were once part of the property of the large houses to the rear. Over the years, many of these riverside holdings have been sold off. Prices vary considerably depending on their size and quality, but are quite expensive considering that the owners cannot live in them and insurance is difficult because of the likelihood of flooding. Now turning to the left-hand side and far away in the distance, you will soon be able to see part of the city skyline. To begin with, look out for the 4 turrets atop our majestic cathedral. Originally, this was the site of a 7th century Saxon minster, but following the arrival of William the Conqueror in the 11th century, the first Norman Earl of Chester, Hugh d'Avranches, authorised the building of an abbey here in 1092. In 1540, along came Henry VIII, and in order to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, he split with the Church of Rome and made himself head of the newly formed Church of England. From this point on, Chester's Abbey became its cathedral, 1892, Chester celebrated its 900th anniversary, firstly as an abbey and then as a cathedral. Queen Elizabeth II herself joined Chester's celebrations by granting Lord Mayor status to the city in recognition of its historical importance. Since 1228 we've had a mayor, now we have a Lord Mayor. Just to the left of the cathedral, note the tall pointed tower standing high above Chester's town hall, seat of local government since it was built in 1869. Very much in the style of a French chateau, but surprisingly designed by a young Irishman, William Lynn of Belfast, when only 29 years of age. Still on the left-hand side, but sweeping well to the right, you will notice a tall chimney. This is Chester's lead shot tower. This tower was built in 1799 to provide lead shot, otherwise known as musket balls, primarily for use as ammunition in the Napoleonic Wars. Although a number of such towers were built at this time, Chester's Tower remains not only as the oldest of the 3 remaining towers in the UK, but as a reminder of those far-off days. I'm sure you will have noticed that for quite some time we have been travelling around a long bend in the river. In the 11th century, the land on the left-hand side was actually an island, known in those days as an eyot or eye, and was owned by the Norman earls. When the last earl died without an heir in 1237, the land passed to the crown and was eventually sold off. The retirement home of a very famous Chester Victorian architect by the name of John Douglas. He was responsible for more than 400 buildings in and around the city, and was particularly noted for his splendid chimneys, some resembling sticks of varnishes. By far his most famous piece of work is the marvellous wrought iron framework supporting Chester's beautiful clock astride the East Gate, the symbol of Chester throughout the world. Building work started on Walmore Hill in 1898, but unfortunately was still not quite finished by the time of John Douglas' death in 1911. This particular stretch of the river is known as Dee Ford, and was the site of a Roman ford way back in the 1st century AD. It's quite shallow here even today, and it's still possible to walk across at this point without getting one's hair wet. Now in view on the right-hand side is a splendid 19th century cream building with a red roof. Once the residence of a wealthy Victorian family, it is now divided into self-contained apartments. Many of the buildings from this point on were constructed around the mid-19th century, in most cases for the well-to-do people of the day. The railways came to Chester in the 1840s and tourism started to boom. The city also became a fashionable centre for the rich and famous, many of whom chose to build their houses in the suburbs. This particular area, known as Borden, approximately 1 mile from the city centre, was just one of them. Today, many of the buildings have been split into apartments or taken over by various business concerns. This suburb was also very significant 2,000 years ago. The Romans of the day discovered natural water springs in the vicinity and pumped their supplies into the city by means of lead pipes and an aqueduct. Our modern city today takes some of its water supply from this same area. Shortly coming into view on the right-hand side, and standing out very prominently, is the lovely Church of St. Paul. Although initially built in 1830, it was comprehensively restored in 1876, where he was born in 1822. Now look out for what appear to be some lovely Georgian buildings on the right-hand side. Known as Diva Terrace, they were actually built by the Victorians. Diva was the name given to the city 2,000 years ago by the Romans, in honour of the Celtic goddess of this very same river Dee on which you are now sailing. We now come to Grosvenor Park on the right-hand side. This 20-acre plot of land was given to the people of Chester in the 1860s by Richard Grosvenor, the second Marquess of Westminster. I'm sure that many of you will be surprised to know that the very first public park in the world was laid out